This lesson is on slope-intercept form of linear equations. And this is actually part 2 of my lesson on this. So if you haven't seen part 1, you can find a link to it up here in the upper right-hand corner. So remember that the slope-intercept form looks like this. Y equals m times x plus b. Remember that m represents the slope of the line, and that b represents the y-intercept. Now, why do they use m and b? I'm not sure, but I would bet that Google will tell you if you're curious. Okay, so this is the slope of the line, and this is the y-intercept. So, how do we write an equation if we're given 2 points on the line? So the first thing that we're going to do is find the slope of the line. If we have 2 points, so here's our first step. The slope, remember, is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And to help me keep this straight, I'm going to pick one of these ordered pairs to be x1, y1, and the other one to be x2, y2. And it doesn't matter which ones I choose. So I'll label this one x1, y1, and this one x2, y2. And I always label my points so that I make sure I plug them in correctly. So if I try to do that in my head, much more likely to make a mistake. So let's plug in those values. Apologize for the cough. And so y2 is negative 8 minus y1 is 1. So negative 8 minus 1, y2 is 5, and x1 is 2. So that's 5 minus 2. So negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. 5 minus 2 is 3. And we can simplify that to negative 3. So the slope of this line is negative 3. Keep in mind that a negative slope tells us that the line is leaning to the left. All right, that's not super important in this problem, but I just wanted to remind you of that. Positive slope, line leans to the right. Negative slope, line leans to the left. All right, so now that we have that slope, we need to find the y-intercept. So in order to write this equation, we needed 2 things. We needed the slope and the y-intercept. And we have the slope now, so how are we going to find the y-intercept? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to write this down. So plug the slope and one of the ordered pairs into the equation. And one of the ordered pairs into the equation. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to then solve for b. So plug the slope and one of the ordered pairs into the equation and solve for b, which is the y-intercept, which is the only piece that we're missing. And if what I just said sounds confusing, hopefully once we do it, it will be less confusing. So let's do that. So here's our equation. Y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to plug in the slope, which we got was negative 3. And then I'm going to plug in one of these ordered pairs. And it doesn't matter which one I plug in, because both of these ordered pairs are points on the line described by this equation. So let's plug in the x1, y1. So I'm going to take this and plug it in. So the y1 is 1, so I replace y with 1. And the x is 2. And now I have an equation with one variable, and I can solve this for b. So let's go ahead and just use order of operations and simplify this and solve it for b. I shouldn't say order of operations. Let's solve this for b, so we're actually using opposite operations. So go ahead and simplify this by multiplying those. All right, to get b by itself, we want to get rid of this -6. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides of the equation. And what I get is that the y-intercept is at 7. Now, if I had used 5, -8 as my x and y values, I would have still come up with the same value for the y-intercept. So here's my m. And again, I got that by using the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And here's my b, my y-intercept. And so the last thing is for me to just write the equation. So y equals m times x. So m is -3, and b is 7, so it's +7. And it's a +7 because this is a +7. Or I should say it's +7 because this is positive. If this was a -7, I would have -7 here. And so that's it. All right, so let's look at the next type of example. So the next piece is, how do we graph the line that comes from an equation written in slope-intercept form? So again, what this equation tells us is it tells us the slope is 2 and the y-intercept is -1. Now remember, slope is equal to rise over run. And so I'm going to write this 2 as a fraction. To write a whole number as a fraction, just put it over 1. So I have a rise of 2 and a run of 1. And I know that the line crosses the y-axis at -1. So this is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. So let's go ahead and plot the y-intercept. So it crosses the y-intercept at -1. So that's from b equals -1. And now I know that the slope of the line is 2 over 1. So starting from this point, I'm going to rise 2 and run 1 to the right. How do I know to go to the right and not the left? Because it's a positive slope and the line needs to lean to the right. So I went up 2. If the slope had been negative, I would have gone to the left. Since the slope is positive, I went to the right. And so now I have 2 points, and that's all you need in order to graph a line. So one of the most common mistakes here is when students do the slope, they'll often start at the origin and go up 2 over 1 from the origin. You always want to start at whatever your y-intercept is. So that's why I plot the y-intercept first, and then I use the slope, rise over run, to find the next point. And so the only thing I have left to do is connect the dots, and I'll have my line. So let's see if I can manage this. So I get that. 2, 1. Trying to keep this consistent. Sorry. That looks pretty good. This end. And so something like that. And really you should put arrows on the end of these because this continues on in both directions. All right. So let's look at one more of those. Maybe. Here we go. So again, the slope is -3. I'm going to use the fact that slope is rise over run. And so this, since this is a whole number, I'm going to write it over 1. If it was a fraction, then I'd already have my rise and I'd have my run. So rise 3, run 1. And notice this is a negative slope, so it's going to be leaning to the left. And the y-intercept is +4. This is the y-axis, so here's x, here's y, at +4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then again, from this point, I'm going to rise 3 and run 1. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and run 1 to the left because this is a negative slope and the line should be leaning to the left. So this point right here came from the slope, 3 over 1. This point came from the y-intercept equals 4. And then I just have to draw a line through this. So, extend this the other direction. Go. Put some arrows on the end of it. And that's it. Now, I want to show you that, so from the y-intercept, I went up 3 into the left 1. I just want you to be aware that I also could have gone down 3 into the right 1. And that would have also given me a point on the line. So you can either go up 3 and left 1, excuse me, or down 3 and right 1. Either way will work. Key thing is remember which way your line should be leaning. So if you think about which way your line's leaning, you'll know whether to go right or left. And I could have done the same thing on this other one here. So I went up 2 and right 1. If I'd gone down 2 and left 1, that would have also been a good point. Line. Let's see if I can fix my line, make this better. Not really. Down 2, left 1. Yeah, that didn't work out. Oh, wait, 2, 1. That's closer. All right. So hopefully that was helpful and useful. If so, give it a like and a subscribe. And feel free to leave a comment. Until next time.